Hey guys, welcome to Chapter 3, Episode 1. So, this chapter is about the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and how does that Charter of Rights and Freedoms protect you. So, just like the first couple chapters we've done, we have a few main focus questions to worry about as we go through this. So, I have my rights. This is a free country. This chapter will explore the individual rights of every Canadian citizen and permanent resident. As we go through this section, you're going to look for some specific things. So, the biggest one, what are your actual individual rights and freedoms that are listed in the Charter? These you'll have to know. 2, what are the responsibilities that go along with those rights and freedoms? Everyone knows, they say, you have the right to free speech. That's the go-to one that people bring up, which is true. You do have that right. But there are some responsibilities that go along with it. Number 3, there are some, let's say, bad moves by the Canadian government in the past. I'll read you a few stories later on, maybe following episodes, and we'll look at some of the consequences from those actions that the government had, and what in our charter would have protected those people if it had existed back then. So, how does the charter protect individual rights and freedoms? 2, how does the charter affect lawmaking in Canada? This is where it goes back to Chapter 1 and the judicial branch. We cannot pass laws, bills that would break our Constitution or break our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And 3, how does the Charter affect the workplace? Can you use the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to protect you at work? So, not an assignment, just something to think about. Maybe we can discuss when we have our Google Hangout. What would your life be like if you didn't have a choice in what events and activities you took part in with others? What rights and freedoms do you expect to have as a citizen in Canada? So before you go along and look at your textbook, look at all the notes, what are some of the rights and freedoms that you know about already, such as free speech? When is it okay for us to restrict laws or restrict your rights and freedoms? Is it ever okay for the government to take away some of your rights and freedoms? And what's the connection between having the right to be represented in government and your identity? Your first little assignment. I'd like you to create a Google Docs called Critical Thinking 3.1. It'll be on there as an assignment, just a paragraph. Okay, you're going to read the cartoon on page 93 to 95, the comic there, and you're going to answer a few questions. Number 1, to what extent should your individuals and rights and freedoms be protected in society? 2, which of the speakers in the comic do you agree with most and why, and justify your answers? 3, how does the Charter of Rights and Freedoms connect to what you've learned about the judicial system in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2? So, I'll read the comic for you guys. Based on a true story of what happened in a school in Canada. All students, please remain in your classrooms while police complete a routine search of the school. What have you found, boy? Oh my, you're under arrest. The student was charged. In court, he challenged the charge because of his rights under the Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So if you're looking at the comic now, a kid was at school, police came in, sniffer dog found drugs in his locker, and they placed the kid under arrest. So he actually took the school, the police, to court. 2 years later, charges against a student at St. Patrick High School were thrown out of court today. The judge ruled that based on Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the police has conducted an unreasonable search and seizure of the student's locker. The reporter asked other students what they thought of this development. So before you know it, the kid got off scot-free. The first girl here says, we have rights so that people in authority, like the police or the government, can't do unfair things. The police can't use dogs to sniff and search school lockers at random. They have to have a reason first. Our rights protect us. Without them, we'd have a police state. That's the girl's opinion. Then you got the guy here. The police need to catch people who have drugs or weapons at school. If they use dogs to sniff out lockers and then search the lockers, it's fine by me. I really don't care about the rights of people who get caught this way. I just want my school to be safe. So that's that critical thinking there. You'll be talking about your opinion on which one you agree with more and what you think of that. So now we got Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. What exactly is this? What is this crazy document? It gives individual rights and freedoms to Canadian citizens. It gives collective rights and freedoms to groups in society. That is more so next chapter. The big one here is, what do we get? What are our rights? Dates from 1982, and we got a fancy word here, entrenched in Canada's Constitution, which is the highest law of Canada. All other laws must be consistent with it. So when we say entrenched, it means it's basically 100% attached to the Constitution now. Constitution was first. Okay, Charter of Rights and Freedoms came along later. Now they are, for the most part, one document. That, like, no laws can be created that go against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms or the Constitution. So what is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? Again, entrenched. It is part of Canada's Constitution, which is the highest law of Canada. The Charter created constitutional protections for individual rights and freedoms which apply to laws and government across the country. With the Charter, Canadians can challenge in court laws that restrict their rights. The judicial branch makes a decision about these challenges by interpreting how to apply the Charter. It strikes down the laws that restrict rights in an unjustified way. The Charter, however, says the government can restrict rights if the restrictions are necessary to maintain a free and democratic society. That last point there is very important when we talk about restricting the rights of people. They should have had safe there. So when is it okay for the government to restrict your rights and freedoms? So, not going to go crazy on this, and we're not going to read this part here. That's our old Prime Minister, actually, Jean Chrétien. But that word entrenched, basically remember that as it is 100% now attached to our Constitution. Okay, they cannot be separated anymore. It's there.
Staff meeting in the gymnasium at 2:30. Staff meeting at 2:30 in the gym.
So, on these next three slides, we're going to go over what our rights are. As we go through this, I want you to think of responsibilities that could go with it. Okay? All these, by the way, are on page 97 in your textbook, and also you have these Google slides. So, number one, your fundamental freedoms. The freedom to express your opinion. 2, the freedom to choose your own religion. 3, the freedom to organize peaceful meetings and demonstrations. And 4, the freedom to associate with any person or group. Those are our fundamental freedoms. 4 of them. 2, democratic rights. The right to vote. I'm basically going to leave it right at that. You can read the rest on your own, but essentially it means you have the right to vote. Okay, and the right to vote for a new government at least every 5 years. Essentially, you got democratic rights is the right to vote. Mobility rights. The right to move anywhere within Canada and earn a living there. And 2, the right to enter, stay in, or leave Canada. Legal rights. The right to be free of imprisonment, search and seizure without reasons backed by law. 2, the right to a fair and quick public trial by an impartial court that assumes you are innocent until proven guilty. Impartial means not biased. They're not judging you. They're only judging you based on the facts, which we went through last chapter. Okay? So again, we got the fundamental freedoms, democratic rights, mobility rights, legal rights, and equality rights. Equality rights is probably the most important of all of them. The right to be free of discrimination because of race, national or ethnic origin, religion, gender, age, mental or physical disability. Just like last chapter, equality rights means the right to be free of discrimination, period. Okay? On any assignments, any tests, whatever, going into the future, when in doubt, the answer is probably equality rights because it goes with everything. So we have 5 main subheadings in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Fundamental freedoms, democratic rights, mobility rights, legal rights, and equality rights. Okay? Fun little fact, with 2 exceptions, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms gives every single person in Canada, whether or not they're citizens, the same rights and freedoms. That means anyone on vacation here, anyone that steps foot in Canada, this could have been a good debate in class, but anyone that steps foot in Canada gets our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, except one big one, the right to vote. Okay? But other than that, they have the rest of our rights and freedoms. And this brings us to your first assignment. This is the rights and freedoms T-chart there. Okay, all you're really doing on the left, you have the rights and freedoms. Again, they're on page 97. It says it right in your book. There, you're just writing them down, making sure letting me know that you know which ones they are. And on the right column, you're giving me an example of how that right might be used in real life. That's it for episode 1, guys. Thanks a lot. See you on episode 2.